Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Money Maverick podcast, where we expose the fallacies of traditional financial advice. I'm Tim Turley, the host for today's episode. We're coming to you from the Money Maverick studio in Salt Lake City, Utah. We have another great Maverick guest today. But before we get into that, usually people want to know how to get a hold of us to learn more about what we teach people. You can simply go to www.uniqueadvantage.biz, B-I-Z, and learn more about the true principles that are really important for money. Well, don't you love paying taxes? I bet you are constantly finding ways to pay more taxes because the government is so responsible with our money, aren't they? You know, on a serious note, what a lot of people don't know about the United States tax code, first of all, it's not like a flat tax, or if you make this much money, you pay this tax. We are what's called on a marginal tax rate system. But more importantly, the IRS tax code was developed and enhanced to actually benefit business owners and entrepreneurs to legally produce more and pay less taxes. There's only a small part of the U.S. tax code that is the penalty part of it, or here's what you have to do and here's what you need to do. And it's kind of geared against a little bit W-2 employees, believe it or not, which is why a lot of financial experts wisely teach people to have some type of a small business, a side hustle, somewhere where they can write off more legal deductions. And, I always think it's interesting when people talk about, oh, he's just taking advantage of loopholes, like loopholes are bad things or something. Whenever I hear that, I say, well, they're not loopholes. They're actually part of the United States tax code. And they were written so you could be more productive and be a contributing business owner in society. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more because it's so important, especially people that are business owners, managers, CFOs. A lot of people are aware of some of the tax codes that may benefit them, or self-employed people, small business owners, entrepreneurs. But it's an important topic. And we're excited to have Colin Strong today. He is the CEO and founder of FinServe 360, which is a business consulting service focused on employer incentives and tax credit programs. And they're awesome, and he's going to tell us about those a little bit more today. Colin was born near Chicago, Illinois, and he grew up in northern Idaho near Coeur d'Alene. He's been married to his awesome wife, Kaylee, for 9 years, and he has 3 beautiful daughters, and we just found out one on the way. And we have to talk about rugby when we talk about Colin Strong. He's an amazing human being. He's also a good friend. Before we get into taxes, Colin, because that's such a riveting subject for a lot of people, right? Talk about rugby. I want to know more details about your rugby playing days. How did you get into that? How long did you play? Where did you play?
Yeah, so I picked up in North Idaho. So in North Idaho College, we had a team, but then you were also insured to play on a men's league. So we played in both. So we just switched jerseys if we wanted to play as 2 different teams. Never played football in high school, and so just in kind of a quick stem between serving a church mission, I came home and picked it up. So played for a year and a half with quite a fun group of guys, and it's brutal. If you got a lot bigger people on the other side of the ball from you, you just still run straight ahead and do what you're told to do, and definitely builds a brotherhood though between the players, and everyone's got to fulfill what they've been asked to do. So,
isn't it kind of like the ultimate manly sport?
Yeah, there's no pads. I mean, some people wear pads. They might wear a scrum cap, but yeah, definitely is tough on the body. But you may be surprised that there's less injuries in rugby than there are football, and a lot of that's probably because of the proper technique and how to tackle when you are trying to take an opponent down. So,
well, that's interesting.
Fun fact for you.
I love that. Yeah. And you still keep in shape. You work out. I know what's that club that you're part of early in the morning, or like a 4 a.m. club or something?
Yeah. So I'll go to the gym at 4 a.m. You'd be surprised how busy it still gets, but we build a family, and that's the culture that we've developed at that time. So go for about 2 hours a morning and get home and put on my dad hat before going to work. So
I love it. Well, your business you're experts in helping companies, business owners, employees, of course, benefit directly from this. Understand how to take advantage of legal tax codes that allows them, if they do certain things, to pay less taxes. And I think everybody listening to this episode should pay close attention. Maybe people know a little bit about some of these tax codes, but go ahead and tell us what FinServe 360 does. And by the way, at the end, you'll be able to tell people how to get a hold of you. Tell us what business owners, CFOs, those type of, what they don't know, what they think they know, but they don't really know, and how you can assist them in understanding the tax code.
Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of programs out there. People that do R&D tax credits, they do cost segregation, they do a lot of those things, right? What's interesting to me is I think unless you've talked to someone who takes advantage of that, it's not like a traditional piece that they learn about on their own. And so you have to know someone that's proactively doing that. So what FinServe 360 does, we focus on a couple programs. 2 of them are time sensitive. They will end. They came from stimulus, from the COVID relief. But the main program that we're focused on, for those of you who don't know, it allows an employer to save $600 to $800 on average per W-2 per year, increase your employees' pay on average 4 to 6%, and they get supplemental health care benefits, and it doesn't cost any out of pocket. And so FinServe 360, we're really focused on no-cost saving programs, right? If we can teach a technique, teach them a strategy that allows them to save money to their bottom line and cash flow, where otherwise they didn't know they could, that's really what we're heavily focused on.
So why don't businesses know about this?
We got to spread the word a lot faster. Most accountants and CPAs, they just don't know this program exists at the moment. And so we are trying to get the word out as fast as possible. Did take a little bit of time to create the program from the referral partner that I work with on that one.
So let's back up a little bit. You just said something that triggered something. This is the Maverick show, and you are a Maverick today. So we Mavericks kind of go against the grain, and we kind of tell the truth sometimes. It may not be pleasant to some people. So we are not bashing in any way, shape, or form accountants and CPAs because they have a very vital function in society. But I remember as a financial advisor and planner talking to businesses about the employee retention credit that came out of COVID, which is ending in April, right? And I remember talking to business owners, and they would tell me, our CPA, the controller, says that we don't qualify for this, or it's not going to be enough, or we're only going to get 16 grand back. It's not worth all the paperwork. Or you got a PPP loan that came out first, and so you can't get the ERC credit, right? So I would hear this all the time, and we would run an analysis on the back end, and not only did they qualify for a credit, even though they had a PPP loan, they got triple or quadruple or longer than that than they even knew. And their supposed expert tax professionals that handles their books didn't even know that. And so again, we love them for what they do, but you should really talk to people like you that know how the credits work or the incentive programs, and do your research. That's what we encourage as a Money Maverick, is ask questions and do your research. Don't just take people's word for it, even if they're on the inside, yep. Right? So sometimes businesses just do not know how these tax codes work. So talk about the one incentive program you said that just saves them $600 to $800 a year. How does that work? What's the tax code program? And I want you to follow up with maybe a really typical response when you talk to people about this. This is too good to be true. How can you do a no-cost program that I save all this money on my employees? Why would they let me do that? So go ahead, Colin.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. 2 most common complaints, I don't even call them objections, are it's too good to be true and what's the catch? And I think a lot of us have been kind of primed to put up a wall that we're being sold all the time. And so really our goal at FinServe is to help people receive the education and give them context of how things are possible. So a little bit of backstory on the program itself. Healthcare costs in the country, super expensive, right? So the entire idea behind this is to allow for employees to participate in early stage healthcare, so preventative care, instead of waiting until stage 3 or 4. If we can do that and help increase the participation rate, we can, in essence, lower the cost of the healthcare to our country. So I always ask people, when was the last time that you went and got a physical or actually had a primary care doctor? Most people I talk to haven't been in years, right? Like we've just become accustomed to not having to go to the doctor. So this program is based on Section 125 and ACA compliance.
And Section 125 is what people in the industry kind of know as what's called the cafeteria plan, right? Section 125. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a big umbrella, right? There's
Right.
a lot of Section 125 plans out there. This one in particular is approved by the state level Department of Insurance. So that's one thing that sets it apart. But it's really interesting because I get to share with people, hey, it's an existing payroll functionality that you're not currently taking advantage of. And so it kind of piques people's interest to say, well, what do you mean by that? So we don't have to change their payroll software. Everything stays the same. All it is we have doing a tax analysis on every employee who would be eligible for the program. So for them to qualify, the employee would need to be expected to make at least $17,000 a year, and they have to see an increase in take-home pay by being on the program. So there would never be a time when someone's a part of the program that's going to pay for it. They just aren't eligible at that point. So all we get is a payroll census from our clients. We've got a couple pieces of info in there, run it through the system, and analyze who would be eligible for one of the 6 plans that we have available. The employees are then auto-enrolled into the program. They see the largest increase in take-home pay. So once they're there, we then deliver that pro forma back to a client before ever moving forward and say, here are your tangible results. Now you can see what your annual estimate in savings would be. So we typically see $600 to $800 in savings, but I've got clients that are as high as almost $900 per employee per year. And that's accrued every time they run payroll. So it's not a lump sum like an ERC or a self-employed tax credit where it's just a one big check per quarter. This is going to be, regardless if it's a weekly, biweekly, monthly, or semi-monthly payroll, they would start to see those savings immediately. So,
can employers use this as a retention tool or even a hiring tool that other businesses wouldn't have the advantage? How would they use that as an advantage to keep or hire employees?
Yeah. So think about, like, we work with a lot of franchise spaces. So what's the difference if you were to go work at, a McDonald's versus a Burger King, if they're going to pay the same? Well, the McDonald's that's actually enrolled in this program, they're now going to actually be able to provide their employees an increase in pay of 4 to 6% on average. So you've got that. You also think about the benefits side. There are healthcare benefits that come from it. And at the low level, entry level employees, many times employers don't always offer major medical to those, right? In the franchise space, it would be managers or others at that seniority level. But any business that's got at least 10 W-2 employees should take advantage of it because it doesn't cost any out of pocket. On the retention side, we see on average an increase of about 20 to 30% in client retention increase of their employees. So they stay around longer because they're given more pay, a lot of supplemental benefits that do not disrupt or affect any of their other eligibility, even if they've got major medical in place.
Is there a minimum employee count that a business needs to have to do this?
Yeah, we like to stay above 10 W-2 employees. That's where it starts to make sense for most.
10 W-2 employees.
But we work all the way up to Fortune 500 companies.
Okay. So is this supplemental health coverage benefits? It's not health insurance like a major medical plan, but is this is this what's referred to in the industry as a minimum essential coverage, or is that something different?
Yeah, so it's different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a MEC plan. This also is not intended to disrupt or replace any existing major medical. So this is just a supplemental enhancement. So I relate it, oftentimes it clicks with a lot of people as kind of a Aflac or Colonial product on steroids. So you can imagine plug and play, and they don't have to take advantage of the benefits, but just a couple highlights. They get a hospital indemnity plan for the employee only. They get unlimited virtual care, so primary, telemed, dermatology, behavioral health. They also get 2,900 medications for $0 copays for them and their families. They've gotten health risk assessments. They get dental, vision, imaging, hearing. I mean, the list goes on. So it is a very robust supplemental plan.
I remember talking to CFOs, business owners, about the similar incentives programs with the same tax code, just to let them know this is available. And many times they would tell me, well, our group health insurance guy never told us about this, so this doesn't make sense. This is why it sounds too good to be true, because they trust, and hopefully you do trust your financial professionals that help you with your business running smoother. But if their group health insurance provider or the agent didn't tell them about it, then it can't be true. So why do they say that, and why don't the group health insurance agents know about this and teach them about this?
Yeah, I think because it is newer, it had come out, outside of COVID, right? They recognized that there was a need for further assistance in the healthcare space. At the same time, we're trying to rapidly grow that audience. Literally this week, I had an agency owner that was blown away that this was even possible. And for her, the new strategy is, hey, we offer major medical. We're going to cover you on these things. Oh, by the way, we have a new value add that we're going to throw in for you. Like, our agency now has this new tool, and it's going to cover way more and then some. And so there can be a little bit of duplication, but there's a few ways you can look at it. The employer wants to save money. The employer wants to increase their retention rate, so they pay their employees more. Or you've got some healthcare, and insurance brokers that can't close the deal because the employer doesn't want to pay for major medical, right? And so they try and find an alternative. Well, this isn't intended and does not meet the requirements to be a major medical plan, but it's a Band-Aid for those that aren't interested in doing major medical because of cost, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we can look at it. And so we are growing in that direction rather quickly because they have the same information that's needed to actually calculate what a company can save on a yearly basis.
Is there a cap on the time this program will be available, or is it's an existing program that's on the books to take advantage of?
Yeah, so it's an insurance product,
Okay.
And it does not have a timeline. So it is approved by the Department of Insurance. The program that I work with specifically is, to my knowledge, the only one that actually goes through the individual filing at the DOI, which is very surprising because there's a lot of Section 125 plans out there. So the compliance piece is a very critical component to the success of the employers and keeping that program running.
Interesting. So on the Money Maverick show, we talk about how principles should guide financial decisions. And it's not just on an individual level, but it's also on a business level. So if a business owner takes advantage of this tax program, it's there for them. They just don't maybe know how it works or ever heard of it. They're saving money for their employees and giving them more. But we also talk about the principle of don't pay more than you need to. Don't spend more than you need to on frivolous things, but also don't pay taxes when you don't need to. We believe in following the laws on the books and paying the taxes that are owed. But how many times do business owners and people pay more taxes than they even need to, and they have no idea they're even doing that, right? Yep. So they're following this principle of mitigating their taxes legally, which translates to more money for their employees, additional benefits, and it's a no-cost alternative. And it's amazing to me that businesses don't know about this.
Yeah.
So we love the principles that this teaches. Legal minimization of taxes, more benefits, which, by the way, what does that produce? So when a CFO or an owner, CEO could take advantage of a legal IRS program to save taxes, pass the savings on to the employees, give them more supplemental benefits that doesn't affect anything they're already doing on the books, what does that do for the business, which in turn, what does that do for these families and the region and eventually the country? What does that do when they take advantage of a program like this? What's the ripple effect of that?
Yeah. One of the parts of the program that's interesting is the indemnity plan is just for the employee only, but all those other benefits I listed off is for their entire household. So when you talk about others that are in not even under their roof, but up to age 72. So I think about it. I wish my father could take advantage of the diabetes discounted products. He's outside of that age range, which is what it is. But when we talk about a ripple effect, you think about, for one, there's the layer of the business owners, and they are connected to other business owners, right? Once one takes advantage of this program, I mean, how do we often hear about tax breaks? And even a gentleman I spoke to last night, he didn't even know he should be filing as an S corp as a 1099 employee. And I said, hey, get rid of the self-employment tax right away. And he's exactly what you talked about a second ago. Was his accountant, he said, he called him lazy. I didn't say it, but he was like, I just feel like my accountant's not aggressive enough to tell me about these things proactively. And they do play a very key part in the success of you operating under the legal terms that the IRS has. But if you imagine one employee can go home and now their medications that they were paying for out of pocket are now covered for $0 copays. Well, think about passing some of those savings on, and anywhere from $20 a paycheck to $220 or more. Think about keeping up with inflation. Think about keeping up with all these other variables that we have to. The increased pay alone makes a huge impact on those families on a regular basis.
So that's a really interesting statement. So back to that little story you told. Again, we're not bashing other financial principles, but we're mavericks here. So CPA's jobs and accountants' jobs usually is to keep the books correctly and then prepare tax returns. They're really not trained to tie that into long-term wealth building or financial planning. They're really focused on that existing tax year and how you can have as many deductions as possible for that 1 year. But if you make a tax decision or a money decision in your business or yourself for just that 1 year, so you get a deduction for doing something that 1 year, could that possibly have really negative ramifications for when you take that money out later? Yes. So we're not slamming CPAs or accountants for not doing that. That's just really not what they're trained to do. They're trained to do a really good job, which they do, on the books and the tax returns. But what about how does that integrate in with everything else? And that's why we like to have people like you on the show. So we're so glad you came in, Colin. Before we go, first of all, a couple questions to you. Who are the listeners of this episode with you, with Colin Strong, that maybe should really pay attention? What kind of people out there should really pay attention to this?
Yeah, I think twofold. One, if you own a business, if you've got family members that own businesses, you need to take a look at this program, right? There is no out-of-pocket cost and there's no obligation, right? Let's figure out how much you're going to qualify for on an annual basis savings. If it doesn't make sense at that point, no pressure. It's going to be there if you want to take advantage of it. But part two, because I feel like we've hit on CPAs and accountants maybe a little hard today, they have been some of my best friends in partnerships, right? If they're not already proactively finding these programs and seeking it out for their clients, let's talk, because I'm happy to help walk the CPA or accountant through the program themselves so they can then be an advocate. And it only makes their business as a CPA or accountant more sticky.
Wait, you're saying that professionals should get together and collaborate in partnerships so things are better for people?
I am. Absolutely, Tim.
Wow, what a concept. That's fantastic. Okay, we want to leave our listeners with the maverick tip of the week when it comes to tax advantage incentive programs. What is something that someone listening to the show, and maybe they're the CPA or the controller or the CFO or the owner of the business, what's something really practical that they can do right away? And part of this is your information, how to get a hold of you, obviously. But what's a good practical tip somebody could take away from this that they can implement right now?
To be honest, be open to programs. You don't know what you don't know. And I think I eat the biggest slice of humble pie on a regular basis, and I'm totally fine doing that. So I would just let you know you're one payroll report away from saving thousands, if not multiple $1 million a year for your business. So,
And to follow that up with your, how do people get a hold of you? Because this is important information, know how that works, how to implement it, and to really feel comfortable that it's not too good to be true. So how do people get a hold of you and what you do for people?
yeah, right now, social media, you can connect with me there. So personal account is I am Colin Strong, all spelt out. Business account, FinServe 360. I'm on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn. And then FinServe360.com is the website. So if you do want to book an appointment, you can go on there and that'll book directly with me.
Excellent. Colin Strong, we're so glad to have you on the show, our Maverick of the Week. We love what you're doing, providing these incentives and the education to tax professionals and business owners. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And our listeners, have a great week. We'll see you next time on the Money Maverick podcast.